Here's a little picture I drew, brothers and sisters, of old Ace here. Just kind of a general, easy, simple manga sketch, but I don't know, kind of cool nonetheless, I thought. So if you like this drawing and more, remember to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+. One Piece, chapter 159. Come on! Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and wickedly woven tale of One Piece. Our last chapter, of course, saw Luffy and Ace finally meeting up, and then, of course, Smoker and the Marines in tow, chasing after them, and certainly Ace wound up using his. We saw he has a firepower. That he was able to combat Smoker's power very well, and that's where things left off. Really, was Ace basically saying, "Hey, we're too evenly matched. This isn't going to be able to go down right now." So we left off over there, and we start off back on the ship, the Marines' ship, and we see Mr. 11. If you remember, he was captured and found by Tashigi and Smoker and the Marines quite some time ago. Back around the Little Garden arc is when we actually were introduced briefly to him. So we also know that, of course, all the Baroque Works agents, the millions or billions agents, there is both, I guess, had been called to Alabasta, certainly for whatever Crocodile has planned to go down. So we wind up seeing some of these agents come in. He's like, "Oh, great, oh, you're here to save me, maybe you can untie me. And you must be the millions." And they go, "No, we're the billions." And the distinction between the two is that the billions are basically they're agents in training. They're waiting to get a spot and to take over for a high-numbered agent like Mr. 11. So he says, "Okay, fine. Sorry about that. Would you want to untie me?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, sorry, that's not going to happen. A spot just opened up, or and miss a chance for a spot to open up, right?" So he winds up, Mr. 11 winds up getting executed by his own people. We go and we see then, too, and the meat of the chapter then takes place as far as, back with Luffy and the Straw Hats, and they're all, like, running back to their ship, and they're like, "Wait, we just got here, we're leaving already?" And Vivi's explaining, she's like, "No, we have to sail up the coast anyway, to where we have to get to next. We're not going to go," and I guess that's quicker. That's the formidable way of being able, the optimal way of being able to travel. So they're all running, and they're like, "Oh, wow," and we see Luffy kind of flashing back to like, "Hey, Ace, I can't believe you're here. I can't believe we ran into each other," type of thing. And Ace is like, "Listen, we'll talk later. I'll take care of these guys now and slow them down, but get out of here, get to your ship." So they're all taken off. They get to the ship, and also we wind up seeing Carue actually get put on a little bit of a mission, a little side mission by Vivi. She gives him some sort of recording device, and honestly, it makes me think of like a Princess Leia in R2-D2 from the Star Wars movies, because she gives him some kind of recording or some kind of records of Crocodile's plan, Baroque Works, blah blah blah, all the information that she's alive and that she's returned to Alabasta, and she's brought powerful allies with her. She tells Carue, she says, "Listen, you got to be careful because, on your way to, I'm assuming the capital where Nefertari Cobra is, to tell him this, he's got to cross some desert." And she's like, "You got to, be sparing with your water." And it's just comical and just funny the way it's drawn, because you see him going, "Okay, yeah, he's good to go." He's like, quack, quack. As he's going off, he's sipping on that damn water, or that cup that he's got with the straw sticking out of it that goes around his neck. She's like, "Conserve your water," And then we go and we see Sanji go and kick Luffy, and because Luffy's drinking out of like a barrel that they bought of water. He's like, "Yeah, you too, idiot," because Luffy's the one that got them in trouble to begin with eating all the damn food. He's like, "We just bought this water," So anyway, they wind up talking, and they start questioning Luffy a little bit about his brother. And Luffy explained, "What's your brother doing here?" And Luffy says, "Well, he's looking for the One Piece too." He says he's a pirate and he's looking for the One Piece. Luffy goes on to explain that Ace is 3 years older than him, and that they both have the power of devil fruits. But when Luffy got his first, and when they were younger, Luffy still couldn't beat him, even when they would fight. Even though he had the power of the the gum gum fruit or whatever. And Ace, and they're like, well, you couldn't even beat a regular person. And they're like, yeah, the older brother of a beast must be a beast or something, you know. So anyway, he goes, yeah, but now I can beat him up, you know. Right as he says that, and of course they're on the ship and they're starting to go away from Doc over here, the dock. We get Ace goes and kind of runs and does this cool heroic like jump on the type of deal. He's sort of like the cooler older brother, you know what I mean? He's just all slick with his hair flying in his face and he's got his cool little cowboy hat and everything, you know. So he goes and jumps on the ship and he's like, "Hey, how you doing, everybody?" type of deal. We wind up finding out a little bit about Ace. He asks Luffy if he got his message, from the Drum Island. Luffy's like, "Huh?" And he's like, "No matter anyway. We're here. That's fine. Whatever. Blah blah blah." So he, of course, he goes on and on to tell him about how he works with Whitebeard, because somebody asks him, I think Usopp asks him about that tattoo that's on his back, and he says, yeah, he's the 2nd Division commander, he's going to help Blackbeard become the king of the pirates, which, of course, we know Luffy's. So he's like, you're shit out of luck, Luffy, you know? And then Luffy's like, okay, well, I guess that means we'll have to fight. And Nami's like, just sit down and have some tea, you know? And Ace is like, no, my business is almost done here. He hands Luffy some kind of piece of paper, right? And Luffy's like, what is this? Just a piece of paper. And he's like, this is what's going to be able to help us get back together again, find our way to each other again or whatever, reconnect. Don't you want it? And Luffy's like, yeah, of course I want it, you know? So he gives him this paper, and then he goes on to explain that he only stopped by here briefly anyway, that because he's actually hunting Blackbeard. We find out that Blackbeard is a former crew member of Whitebeard's crew. He's calling him Blackbeard. He's calling himself Blackbeard these days. You know, that's what he's named himself. He says, but he goes, ultimately he committed the ultimate act of like treason. Against pirates. He killed one of his own people and then jumped ship. So he's been chasing around because he's the 2nd Division commander for Whitebeard's Pirates, but apparently this guy was underneath him. He was one of the guys that he was in charge of. So it's his responsibility to go and wrangle him up. So he's on the hunt for Blackbeard. He's like, otherwise I would have never stopped in a backwater port like this or whatever. So, and then he's like, all right, so see you later. He's like, blah blah, and he's like, next time we meet Luffy, it'll be on the high seas, right? So he goes and goes to take off and jumps off the boat, and he's got this little like skiff-looking surfboard almost with a with like a sail attached to it. It's kind of cool looking, and looks like something out of the Disney movie Treasure Planet. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and Google it and look it up. But he goes and so he goes to take off. While this is happening, we go and we do get a couple of flashes briefly of because they're asking about, isn't the Navy going to follow you or follow us? And he says, no, not likely, because I use my powers. And we go and we see that he threw a fire net over, and basically kept the Marines from getting to chase after them. So slowed them down enough anyway to give them a good head start, it appears. And then we also go in, and the Marines, of course, they make mention of somebody executed Mr. 11. So we know he in fact was killed, even though it was kind of just a hold the gun up, fade to black moment. We just assumed he was dead. Now we have confirmation of it. And then we see a bunch of the Baroque Works agents, and they're like, yeah, and some of them are talking amongst themselves, and they're like, no, that's Fire Fist Ace. He's one of Whitebeard's guy, basically one of Whitebeard's lieutenants, right? And we'll be promoted to agents for sure if we get him, So they all go and decide to go and catch him out at sea. And they come upon him. They got a couple of boats, and they come upon him, and they're like, we're 50 strong. We'll take you out, blah, 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 right? And Ace just, you see how powerful this character is, and very briefly, too. He just, like, leaps up in the air. He does this fire fist move, and just torches everybody and everything. Lands back on, and they're like, oh, ha, ha, anchor boy. And that's what they call people that obviously have eaten the devil fruit, because they sink like an anchor. But they didn't even stand a chance. I mean, he didn't even blink, right? And that's how we see, that's how we see things. That's how we see him portrayed. It was very, very cool. And that is ultimately how the chapter ends, is with him, doing that, to just taking out all these guys and then kind of being like, all right, I'm going to be on my way now, So, and just sort of like a Luffy, we'll meet again. So definitely a very cool chapter. I don't know how much or how soon Ace is going to tie back into things, but ultimately my chapter question is, what do you think about, at this point in the story, of course, as a Portuguese Ace as a character? I mean, what do you think about him? Do you like him? Do you think that he's kind of cocky and brash? Tell you the truth, I think he's kind of cool, and I think it really having Luffy, knowing that Luffy, who's been sort of this mystery, this wild card, so to speak, knowing that he has some family, I think is a cool thing. So let me know what your answers are, brothers and sisters, in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation. Well, if you're wondering, brothers and sisters, why this wee lass is crying, it's probably because you haven't commented, shared, liked, maybe subscribed even, and joined the Nerd Nation. But just something to consider.